G'day, Internet. Max Wright here. And this is part of a journey here that I'm doing. You've noticed a few of these videos lately. This is another one. I've just really started enjoying meeting and greeting people who are in the Bitcoin world, in the investment world. And I used to just kind of reach out to people and just kind of network and chat to people, but I've started recording them and letting you guys get to know other people as well. So that's continuing that series and that thought process. We have another one here. Clay, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Max. It's fun connecting with you.
Good stuff. So we were connected through Dr. Jeff. I was like, hey Jeff, who should I chat to here? Who are some good people in the industry? He recommended you, and I was like, okay, good stuff. Let's find out more about here. And so you're involved, and we can see the picture over the back. It's probably the type of picture that a lot of people are familiar with. The branding that the podcast does is excellent. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey, how you fit into the Investors Podcast, and the whole deal?
Yeah, I guess from the very beginning, I fell in love with investing once I read a Warren Buffett biography. I was about 18, 19 years old at the time. And I, read this idea of how he became a billionaire. I'm from Nebraska, so I naturally wanted to learn more about Buffett specifically. And just learning about this concept of investing just like blew my mind, and was like, why is no one talking about this? So I'm sure you had kind of that same realization at some point. Why is no one talking about, putting money down now to get a lot more money later? That's kind of the art and science of it. So along the way, I discovered the Investors Podcast Network when I was in college. Just became a huge fan of Preston Pysh and Stig Brodersen, the two founders. And ever since, they've been adding a number of hosts. I believe we're at 6 hosts now. There's a few on the We Study Billionaires channel. And then we have Robert Leonard and myself on the Millennial Investing feed. Robert specifically covers real estate, and I kind of cover all the other stuff. We got stocks, Bitcoin, and maybe personal finance, entrepreneurship. We hit on a bunch of topics there. So I joined the team back in the fall of 2021. And honestly, it's a dream come true. And I'm really enjoying it. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's super cool. So do you I'm kind of interested in the business side of what you're doing. And do you have support staff, or are you just doing this all on your own? Can you kind of give us a bit of a clue on your day-to-day, and how do you go about contributing to the whole organization?
Yeah. So Preston and Stig started it back in, I believe it was 2014. They started the original channel, and I believe it was just them for quite a while. And Stig kind of handles a lot of the business side of things, and he's ramped up the team significantly over the past couple of years. We have a few salespeople that sell our podcast ads. We have many people over in the Philippines that do a lot of the back end stuff for us. They help make our podcast just so great. They'll work on the audio editing, the great graphics, like the graphic behind me, you'll see. But yeah, we have, I believe, 20 to 25 people on our team. And it takes a lot to put together a good podcast. So it's really cool being able to be with the team and learn all of the business side of it. The majority of our revenue comes from podcast ads, but we're starting to expand to other areas, such as we hired a couple of YouTube hosts, and we're trying to expand a newsletter unit as well. So, the majority of our revenues from podcast advertising, but we're trying to, use our brand to, expand outside of that too.
Good stuff. Now I have a quick, I'm totally giving up my ignorance here on the whole podcasting deal. So I've had a YouTube channel for years. Don't know anything about podcasts. Never listened to a podcast. I listen to podcasts on YouTube. They call themselves podcasts like you guys, but I don't get it. And I'm like, I probably should go and do the investigation, because I'm making a ton of content over the years. Help me understand, like, in terms of you're just another place to place the same content you're producing. You generally do it in video, or you generally do it in audio. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Robert, one time, my co-host, he mentioned that in a way, we're kind of the modern day CNBC. We're bringing on these experts. And, in college, my appeal to podcasts specifically was I listened to it in my car. So I drive an hour, drive a half hour to class and back. And I'm just always tuning into these podcasts. It's just like such an easy medium to bring that in rather than just turning on the radio and listening to music. I guess nowadays, since I work from home, I'm, listening to podcasts, on a walk, maybe while I'm cooking dinner. It's just so easy. It's a medium I've naturally kind of hopped on, given that TIP is in the podcasting space. Some stuff I do listen to on YouTube. Like this week, I listened to Preston Pish on Peter McCormack's podcast, What Bitcoin Did. And, they were walking through all these charts. So I was watching it on YouTube. And I think podcasting and YouTube kind of go hand in hand together. I think some podcasts can create some really good YouTube channels just with kind of what Peter's doing with the really quality video on top of the quality audio, which I think is pretty cool.
So I'm just trying to think of the appeal. Maybe I get it a little when maybe data was more expensive or something. It's like, well, it's like, okay, more people are going to tune into the audio only instead of the video. And then I guess it's easier on the creator side to, and the editing side, a little bit of savings there. But other than that, I know, like, it just doesn't even enter my head to do audio only.
I think one of the reasons it's been so successful for TIP2 is Preston and Stig just started so early. So I believe the founding story is Preston and Stig were at the Berkshire Hathaway shareholders meeting, and they were doing this, kind of creating this content around Warren Buffett, doing stuff online. And I believe one of Preston's good friends he met at the meeting, they were on the plane on the way back from Omaha, and he told Preston, "Hey, you should start a podcast and start talking about Warren Buffett and value investing." And Preston's like, "What in the world's a podcast?" And then next thing you know, they create a podcast. They end up making quality episodes. They rise to the top of the ranks, and it kind of starts this flywheel effect of, quality episodes leads to advertisers coming to wanting to pay for ad space. And then you can use that money to reinvest back in the business. And then you can, stay at the top of the charts. And I think having that first mover kind of advantage, put them in a position to really succeed in the podcasting space, I think.
Gotcha. And would you happen to know the statistics? Is the podcast space growing faster or slower than the YouTube space, or where are you getting most of the growth in your business now?
Yeah. I honestly don't know the numbers, but I do know podcasting is definitely growing as a medium. When COVID hit, many people are stuck at home. The podcasting space definitely grew. Our channel definitely grew. And then when the markets really started rising, our channels really grew on top of that as well. So it's kind of like almost like a multiplier effect where people are stuck at home. They didn't have much to do. And then on top of that, they see that all their friends making money off stocks. So they want to go out and learn about investing. But as far as YouTube goes, I think there's so much potential in YouTube. It seems like it's a very competitive space as well as advertising. But honestly, I'm not super familiar with YouTube, but I know it's probably a much bigger market than podcasting, but I'm probably not the expert to ask on that.
Gotcha. But so you record your podcasts, they're audio only, but they get turned into videos and they find their way on YouTube, right?
Yeah. I believe it was last year TIP started putting, we used to always put the audios up on YouTube, but now we've started recording the videos and putting those up as well. But still the majority of, the majority of our listeners are still on the podcast. I'd say 90% or so.
Okay. Understood. So now let's zoom in a little bit and let's talk about what kind of content do you discuss on your channel? What are the types of guests you have? And do you come across just as the reporter, or are you contributing to the content as during the conversation, or is the goal to extract as much from the guest?
Yeah. So I guess I'll kind of rewind back to what the channel was originally started to do. So We Study Billionaires. They started off studying Warren Buffett. That's who they studied. That's kind of they were Warren Buffett disciples. But they named the show We Study Billionaires. So they didn't just study Warren Buffett. Originally they went down the path of, Buffettology of, buying great businesses at a fair price and holding for a really long period of time. They'll do deep dives on companies and such. But eventually they discovered people like Ray Dalio, who, has this thesis of the long-term debt cycle. And, now that We Study Billionaires feed has a Bitcoin feed, and Preston always says that he would have never become a Bitcoiner if it wasn't for Ray Dalio. So it's just really cool getting to learn from all these different viewpoints. I think a lot of people kind of get siloed into one way of thinking and they don't really get to hear the other side of the argument. And I think that's one of the benefits of being a host. So the Millennial Investing Show started in 2019 to, I think, try and bring investing down a little bit. Some of the stuff when We Study Billionaires, I think, can get pretty sophisticated. So on Millennial Investing, we'll cover all the investing basics for sure. So you can start with, say, index fund investing just in stocks. We'll talk about personal finance. And really, my goal is just to empower the listeners to become better investors. I'm a millennial myself, kind of on the younger end of the age range, and try and put the listener in a position to learn from a variety of different viewpoints. I also just I just enjoy learning. I think a lot of us here at TIP enjoy learning. So I'll bring on a ton of different viewpoints. Like, I'll talk to people about gold, about Bitcoin, about different asset classes, about the macro overview. And I just enjoy learning as much as I can. So yeah, I'll bring on as many different viewpoints as I can, try and challenge my own thinking and my own viewpoints. And yeah, I'll contribute to the conversation, but really I try and, make it as much about the listener and the guests as much as I can, because they're the experts, not me.
Gotcha. Are you the one doing the booking? Are you the one reaching out to try and get guests? How do you keep that flow going?
Yeah. That's one of the best things about TIP. I think I do select the guests. I select the topics. Yeah, I just, try and find quality guests, try and find interesting guests and interesting topics, someone that would make a good podcast guest. Lately, I've been finding some really good guests that have written books recently. I'm interviewing a guy next week that's talking about like the digital age of value investing, how value investors kind of have to adapt to the changing times of technology. I'll bring on Bitcoin guests. There's another guy I had this week. He also wrote a book called The Anxious Investor, Scott Nations. And he, in his book, it's just a really good book talking about all these stock market bubbles over time and how investor biases play into that. And I just find it all really interesting. And it's just fun learning from these authors, these guests. It's really enjoy it.
Good stuff. So now I'm going to put you on the hot spot here a little bit. So you've got all these wonderful guests. You're learning all of these things. Now let's pick that big brain of yours. Tell us a little bit about what you've kind of learned, what's going on in the macro world, and what are you kind of expecting to happen here for our portfolios?
Yeah, I always kind of venture back to the Warren Buffett principles. I don't only invest in stocks, so to say. So, everyone's talking about macro nowadays, the Fed doing QT, asset prices coming down. So it seems like the one trade this year is, what is the Fed doing? Is if they're tightening, then, financial asset prices aren't going to do well. And then if they're easing, obviously financial prices have done really well. But honestly, I'm a long-term investor. I find the investments I'm comfortable holding for the next 5-10 years. So the majority of my portfolio consists of just index funds and Bitcoin. And then I'm also starting to get into some other assets. I'm thinking about adding more gold and silver to my portfolio, just kind of as a sort of hedge, just a small position. I see the potential value in that. That kind of falls in line with Ray Dalio's long-term debt thesis of, how this, debt and money printing is all going to eventually pan out and, resolve itself. And also getting more interested in individual stocks, using that kind of Warren Buffett approach of buying and holding for a really long time. Because I think with that long-term debt thesis, I think there's a strong case that active investors who find really, really good companies, I think have a really pretty good shot at beating the market like an index fund.
Okay, good stuff. So interesting. Index funds, like, it seems very conservative, very safe. And then over here you got Bitcoin. And I mean, is that by design, a little bit of a balanced portfolio there? It's like you expect, one to do a little, I guess in this macro environment, like this correlation's high, but by the same token, you're just going a little bit traditional, a little bit. Is that the strategy there, to be a little bit diversified?
Yeah. We were talking pre-show. I'm a bit jealous of how early you got into Bitcoin, but like most people, I was pretty skeptical of it initially. The first thing people will say is, Bitcoin doesn't create anything. It doesn't produce cash flows. It doesn't have any intrinsic value. And then once Preston and Stig, started talking more and more about it as a listener of the show, I was like, just who these people are. They aren't going to pitch something that they believes, Ponzi scheme or a scam. So I actually dug into what it actually is. And, in 2020 started building making it a position that's not just like a little speculative bet. I started adding, making it a larger position in my portfolio. And I just think Bitcoin can bring so much to the world. But in terms of, for millennial investors, we see a rising housing market, a very expensive stock market. And Bitcoin, I think, gives this really unique risk return profile. The upside on this thing is very significant. And, the downside, there are obviously risks with every investment. And I'm very comfortable with the risk return on Bitcoin.
Yeah, I appreciate that you came in with a skeptical mind. It's wise, and you should do it. I certainly did. I had a passion for. My degree is engineering. I was not formally trained in economics, but studied a lot of economics in my time, especially the Austrian school. And I considered myself a monetary scientist, hobbyist. And the only reason I started learning about Bitcoin was to tell those silly fools why their magic internet money was not going to work. And luckily, I had a very, very good mentor in Trace Mayer, and he just every time I was just like, yeah, what about this? What about this? What about this? He just had an answer, and it was just boom, 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 boom.
Preston used work to put together the Mayer multiple. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I am together with the Mayer multiple, but you cut out a little bit there. What did you say about that?
No, I was just saying. In the early days, Preston and Stig had Trace Mayer on the podcast. And it's just so cool how you're connected with him. So
for me, I think there's kind of like about 5 who are the prominent OGs. And he's certainly one of the 5. Eric Voorhees, Charlie Shrem, and actually, no, I would say 4. And then Roger Ver. So there is one other. I'm pretty sure there's 5, and there's one forgetting. But yeah, it just happened to be one of the.
Meister, one of them.
What's that one, sir?
Pure de Meister.
I don't even know that name.
Mm-hmm.
No, so
he was on.
I'm sure they are. It just that one managed to elude me. But yeah. So anyway, it was fun days for sure. And I was just at a libertarian conference in California, and very lucky, my girlfriend at the time happened to do law school with Trace. And I think actually Trace earned it and didn't want to be valedictorian. And my girlfriend got valedictorian. They call it something else in law school, some Latin name I don't remember. But so she got the title, but he actually won the grade. And but yeah, I think for some reason he passed it up. So anyway, they were friends in law school, and we're at a libertarian conference, and that's how I met him. And boom, the Bitcoin journey began. So let's get back on track. Sorry, got a little bit self-indulgent there. So tell me, what's like the vision for where you're going? Like, is there anything that you really want to accomplish that's kind of not obvious, and not just keep doing what you're doing, that you want to do over the next little bit?
Yeah, I think just the big thing is just guiding and continuing to empower investors. TIP, like I mentioned earlier, we're all big fans of learning and just continually improving and reading, and it's kind of a never-ending journey, and that's kind of the beauty of it. I really enjoy it. I've been having a ton of fun. Some people will ask Preston and Stig, you studied all these billionaires. What's kind of the biggest thing you've learned? And it's like, these guys are they're just voracious readers. Buffett, he in choosing the people that would take him and Charlie's place, he just said, these people were the only people we could find that, read as much as we did. So, we just really enjoy, doing what we do, just empowering and, trying to teach investors as much as we can. And TIP is, really growing really fast. we've been adding new people to the team, and we have some new things coming in the works in the future that I'm really excited about. It's not public information yet, so we're have some things in the works for the Millennial Investing and We Study Billionaires show coming up. And just the way TIP operates, I think, has just taught me so much. Coming in, it's kind of flipped everything I've learned about how businesses should work, and it's flipped it all on its head. Just hiring the right people, treating them right, just putting such a big emphasis on, caring for others, caring for the listeners. And it's really been a joy just working with TIP, and really grateful to be in this position.
So that's an interesting concept. So I'm fascinated by this. If I went back 3-4 years, your gut reaction is that bosses are, employers are oppressors. Employees are these weak, vulnerable, pathetic little losers under the boot of the big, strong capitalists. Is that your picture of how it worked?
Right. I mean, just like treating people right.
Or the value of that. Is that what you're talking about? How there's so much more upside. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the book behind me, Principles, I think Ray Dalio just had a big impact on Preston and Stig, and it's a win-win scenario. And I think Munger also hits on this. You want to create those win-win-win scenarios where everyone wins, and it just it aligns that incentive structure. And I think that's lost in many places of society, sadly. And hopefully Bitcoin can help fix some of that.
Yeah, I mean, life's just really, really hard if you can't create win-wins, because you have to keep regenerating relationships, and that just makes it really hard. Whereas if you create win-wins, your network grows, the people who want to help you grow, and just things just get better and better and better, and it certainly makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
But I always I like, for whatever reason, I think I always understood that in order for businesses to be successful, they need great teams and great employees. And those employees have an enormous amount of power. And if you're a good employee, then it's hard to keep you, because you're going to go where you're most valued. And it's just important for the employee to value the employee.
I think if you talk to a lot of millennials my age, they'll say the way to make, the most money in the corporate world is to job hop every 2 years. Well, so it's not like, trying to provide as much value to society to to make the money you want to make. It's essentially just job hopping from one job to another. And that's not beneficial really to the employee or to the employer. So just really, hiring the right people and treating them right, just flips that on its head. And it's just really cool to experience that firsthand.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm glad. I think you probably got I don't know if you can point to a specific place where you got the impression that you had about what, business was like and being an employer and how hard it is to keep good people. But, it's probably somewhere in the schooling system, something like that. And I'm just like, it's so sad that that's the impression that millennials have, because they come out with an adversarial relationship. It's like, well, how can I extract what I can from the employer and move on before he gets something out of me? And it's just like, no, not how it works at all. All right, well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I appreciate meeting you. Wish you every success. You're doing so well, and I want you to keep going and all the good things. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Max. It's been fun.
Awesome. Well, guys, if you're enjoying this, meeting the people in the Bitcoin world, do me a favor, go ahead, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. And of course, what are your socials there, Clay? How can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Clay_Finck. Finck has a C before the K. And then podcast is Millennial Investing.
Awesome. Good stuff. All right. Thank you so much. And guys, take care. We'll see you soon.